Question of the day: why is everything so complicated? Hey guys, welcome back to 5NothinGoodNothin.com. I am Fuggit, and it stands for the fittest underdog guru using intelligent tactics. Guys, today I want to talk to you about a topic that I think is becoming a bigger and bigger issue in the world today, and that is things that are just complicated, right? Whether it's the particular industry you're in, whatever it was, like you could be a specialist, or you need specialists in so many different sectors, right? Because you can't master all of it. The information, the skills needed, protocol, everything is just, there's a just immense amount of information. The most obvious place that you can see that is in the daily news. So not only do you have like a political slant or lean with each one of these news organizations, but depending on who you watch, and if two different news organizations are covering a story, or reporters, and they report on it, you could read both and see completely different stories, two different perspectives, right? And it might have some bias to it. It might have, maybe just, two different eyewitnesses saw different things, but they shouldn't be so different that it's completely unrecognizable on one side or the other. And getting back to complication with jobs, right? You can have specialists on disease or treatment or cure or whatever, and you'll see two MDs. One has this approach and says this will save you, taking another approach will kill you. The other side will say no, it's the opposite of that. And all of a sudden you get this enough from your politicians, maybe religious leaders, maybe you have parents or mentors that are like polar opposites of each other. You have friends that are polar opposites of each other. And all of a sudden, you just get so confused that you just don't know what the heck to do. And it gets increasingly challenging to take a hard stance on something, or know what you stand for, or what you believe in, or even what you'll do. I've seen, I'm a Gen Xer. So I've seen in the generations that have come after me, once a kid gets past that age of everything is black and white, and they start to see that a lot of things end up, unfortunately, dying the death of 1,000 qualifications. Meaning, like, you think you have a hard, fast answer on something, and that you know the truth about it. And then you start to see the answers come as you get more information of, it depends on this, it depends on that. I've talked about this before. I had a biology teacher in college that drew this big circle on the board, and then he wrote on the inside of the circle of questions, or circle of knowledge rather. On the outside he wrote circle of questions. So if that circle's really little, meaning you have little knowledge, the questions you have are only around the outer periphery of the circumference of that circle. There's very little room for questions, right? Because you have limited knowledge. As you gain more knowledge, that circle expands. Outside, the circle of questions increases. So you get somebody who's PhD, who's been an expert for 50 years in a field, and you ask them a simple question, you might get annoyed with the answer you get. Because if it doesn't have a lot of context, meaning you can't give a lot more detail about the question, whether it's specifics about that case or that particular subject, and or the time frame, the age of individuals, lifestyle, whatever. There's a million questions that somebody who's an expert is going to ask you. Then they really can't give you anything more than, to them, generalities. To you, it might be like knowledge bombs hitting you, but to them, that's surface level stuff. And at some point, it starts to drive you a little insane, right? Because you just start to, some people will love this stuff and want more and more knowledge and have more and more questions, and they love it and love it and love it, and they take it to a point where they're like an expert in this area. And other people will just be on info overload. I don't know if it has to do with IQ, I don't know if it has to do with personality or genetics, brain power, whatever you want to call it, but for some people, they just go insane. Sometimes figuratively and sometimes literally, because it's just too much. And I think for everybody, you have to do a couple things. One is identify yourself and your happiness. And is this particular topic, this particular stance, whatever it is it making you happier, making you more sad? Is it a cause you really want to fight for, you want to die on the hill for, Or is it just something that is ego-based and you need to be right? So are you trying to be like an attorney that's building a case, and even though they know they're wrong or they might be wrong, they're not open to truth. They're just fighting for the right to say, I told you so, or look, I'm right. So be careful the battles you pick, because some of them are worth fighting for. Most of them are not. So it's complicated, right? Hence the title of the video. I'm all over the place here. I hope you understand that. Maybe some of you think like me, so you're following along just fine. A lot of my interactions in my personal life and in business, those who think like me, who kind of go off the rails a little bit, we can click and go and go and go, and we're all over the place. And those that tend to be a lot more focused on a topic, a particular topic, and going one direction, go crazy with me, because they're like, what the heck are you doing? So sometimes I'll make videos where I'll keep things on point, and I can only do that if I actually have it written down and I'm following some kind of like a guidepost to keep me on track and not off the rails and on rabbit trails and all that fun stuff. It's not as much fun to me, but I look at like video performance, and it seems that there's no rhyme or reason to which ones will do better. The ones that I'm either talking off the cuff, or the ones where I am very point oriented, staying on the topic, hit my bullet points, boom. But different strokes for different folks. There's millions of channels, probably millions of channels on YouTube. But, looking for the next YouTube. What's it going to be, guys? Who's going to rival the video platform of the gods? It's only been here less than 2 decades, actually. But it's interesting. Maybe it's YouTube forever, but probably not. So, see, that's a perfect example of getting off topic. Why? Because I'm complicated, that's why. But that's okay, I own it, and I'm okay with it. I never try to change it, I just live in it, and just try to rein it in sometimes. That way I don't turn more people off. You don't want to be that person at a party that everyone is kind of whispering to each other, going, why did you invite them? You don't want to be that person, right? Or do you? Maybe at family gatherings. If there's ever family gatherings again, right? That dates this video very well. But, yeah, things can be very complicated, you guys. And it gets a little overwhelming. We've had a crazy year. There's been a lot of emotional highs and lows, and a lot of lines drawn in the sand, and, people, choosing their tribal side, and others that have been quiet and just said, you know what, I'm going to let this storm pass, and I'm not going to get involved. And those might be the smartest people, but you have to follow your gut instinct and your internal compass, your moral compass, and be ready to fight for whatever that is. But most of the time, I think it's good to listen to voices that are pro and con, whatever you're standing for or whatever you're researching, because that's how you learn. You know, you need to be offended sometimes. You need to be challenged sometimes. You need to be questioned sometimes. And it might change your perspective, you know. It might reinforce your perspective. You know, the only thing you can do is try. And that's the biggest crime, is not trying or not standing for something. You know, you don't have to pick it now if you don't stand for anything. But, you know, you've got to continue on the journey. You've got to continue to try to recreate yourself and grow yourself, evolve as a person. You know, you get a little bit more patient, a little more tolerant, a little more understanding, a little more insightful as a person, hopefully with age. But that's a personal choice. You know, wisdom, they say wisdom comes with age, and that's true to some extent. Here we go, here's another one. It depends. I think a lot of it depends on the openness of the individual to learn from mistakes and not repeat it. You know, they say you keep like choosing the same person that's not good for you. It's because there's a lesson you're supposed to learn before you move on to somebody who's healthy for you. And that might be true. But sometimes there's also voids in your life that you decide that that type of person fills the void, even though it comes with a lot of negative consequences or things you'll have to put up with, but you still are attracted to that type of person for whatever reason, right? I would tell you what it is, but I don't know, because it's complicated. Just some random thoughts, didn't really go anywhere, but maybe I just took your brain and exercised it a little bit, stretched it a little bit, or maybe I just filled 12 minutes of your day with some escapism nonsense. Talk to you soon.